In Johannesburg, South Africa, where over 300 violent incidents occur daily, the police are constantly engaged in battles with criminals. In order to combat the increasingly rampant criminals, the government has introduced a new type of robot called Sentinel. These Sentinels are designed to replace police officers in carrying out dangerous tasks. With their powerful learning capabilities, Sentinels not only adeptly use various weapons but also execute any given task swiftly and accurately. As a result, with the establishment of a police force consisting entirely of robots, Johannesburg has finally regained long-lost order. During routine law enforcement, the Sentinels' bodies sustain damage, but this is easily repaired by replacing the faulty components, allowing them to resume their operations immediately. They patrol tirelessly 24/7, forcing the once active criminals to keep a low profile. Ninja, the leader of a small criminal organization, often assists local gangs in drug trafficking, but this time, with the sentries in pursuit, Ninja's drug shipment was knocked over and scrapped. Faced with the consequences of this, the gangster Hippo demanded compensation from the Ninja within 7 days. Failure to meet this deadline would result in the execution of all Ninja's team members. The sentry had by this time also caught up with the place, and all at once took up their weapons and were on guard. Amidst a loud explosion, dense smoke filled the air, obstructing the Sentinels' vision. Forced to land, the Sentinels engaged in combat. At this point, some of the thugs tried to fight back, but they were easily killed by the sentries. The human police also joined the fight, using the sturdy bodies of the sentries as shields. Gangsters defenseless against sentry attack, the police swiftly advanced towards the gang's camp, where some remaining criminals attempted a sneak attack. However, their attacks were all blocked by the sentries. Upon receiving new orders, the Sentinels employed lethal weapons. The sentries then finally managed to storm inside the camp. Just after the sentry kicked the door open, a rocket from Hippo hit Sentry 22 directly in the chest, immediately rendering the robot unresponsive with its powerful force. Witnessing this, the remaining officers dared not make any rash moves and called for backup from headquarters. In the meantime, Ninja found an opportunity and swiftly fled in a car. With this battle over, this is the 30th major crime syndicate that the Sentinels have destroyed. Terra Tech, the robotics company behind the Sentinels, employed an impregnable key system to prevent hacking. Only they possessed the ability to modify the Sentinels' programming. Dean, the designer of the Sentinel robot, has always wanted to create robots with emotions and thoughts. Dion's research on artificial intelligence has been successful, and he has approached his bosses wanting a sentry robot for testing. But when the boss heard Dion's idea, she refused Dion's request. As a listed weapons company, they only need robots that follow orders to the letter. Rejected by his boss, Dion secretly took Sentinel 22, which had been damaged in the previous battle, and the key to modify its programming. However, as Dion left the company, he was intercepted by Ninja's squad and knocked unconscious. It turned out that after the previous battle, Ninja received a call from Hippo, threatening to obliterate them if the compensation was not delivered within a week. Faced with such a threat, Ninja's only recourse now is to rob a money train. However, they knew they would be pursued by the Sentinels. Yolandi had an idea. Like other machines, the Sentinels should have a remote control for activation and deactivation. If they could find that remote control, the robotic police would no longer attack them. That's why they kidnapped Dion. However, when Dion heard their naive idea, he explained that the robots were equipped with firmware locks since their factory production. Unless they run out of power, they would remain in an active state. Therefore, there was simply no way to shut down the Sentinels. Just as the Ninja were about to beat up Dean, another teammate named America rushed in and told them that he had found Sentinel 22 in the car and that the robot was apparently in a power outage. Upon hearing this, Yolandi came up with another idea. She demanded that Dion reprogram the robot, allowing it to work for them. With such a robot, they will be able to do whatever they want to do in the future. Now either Dion will help them change the robot or they will kill Dion immediately. Under the threat of death, Dion ultimately chose to compromise. He decided to seize this opportunity and implant his latest developed artificial intelligence into Sentinel 22. Dion first reattached the robot's arms because number 22 Sentinel was severely damaged in the previous battle. Its power supply could only last for 5 days, and once the time was up, number 22 would immediately lose its mobility. Dion then accessed the control program of the Sentinel and made changes by inserting a key and implanting the latest artificial intelligence. Eventually, after the anticipation of the group, number 22 Sentinel finally rebooted. However, this newly awakened robot became immediately anxious and started evading when it noticed that there were so many people looking at it. It turned out that the robot's mindset was akin to that of a newborn human infant, intelligent but unaware of anything, not even basic language. Witnessing the agitated state of the ninja, the robot felt scared, but Yolandi quickly approached to calm it down. She called out to number 22 with a gentle voice, and upon sensing the goodwill, the robot cautiously emerged. Subsequently, number 22 began attempting to interact with humans. The robot first looked at Dion's watch. Now filled with curiosity about everything, Dion immediately began teaching it, and number 22 quickly learned. Yolandi also introduced herself, and the 22 quickly remembered Yolandi's name. Number 22 looked at Dion, recognizing him as its creator. Upon learning Dion's name, number 22 became joyous, much like a child. Yolandi named the robot Chappie. Ninja arrived once again and immediately chased Dion away. The next day, Ninja took Chappie outside to teach it how to use weapons. However, the sound of gunfire frightened Chappie. Nevertheless, Ninja disregarded this and forcibly brought Chappie closer, then thrust a weapon into its hands. Chappie was forced by Ninja to start shooting randomly. The bullets didn't hit the target, and Chappie, instead, got scared and dropped the weapon. The commotion quickly drew Yolandi's attention, and she strongly disapproved of Ninja's actions. Dion was the one who truly understood artificial intelligence and was the only person capable of providing proper guidance to Chappie. Meanwhile, Dion was researching online, preparing to educate Chappie using methods for teaching human toddlers. However, when Dean left the company, he had no idea he was being followed. It turned out that prior to the appearance of the Sentinel robots, Tetravale Corporation had another robot development project. Vincent, the person in charge of that project, opposed artificial intelligence. Vincent believed that humans controlling robots would be the most powerful. He specifically designed a helmet that could connect to the human brain, allowing the wearer to control the robot and perform various actions. However, the police department showed no interest in Vincent's robot research. Those robots were not only expensive but also cumbersome and unattractive, lacking the agility and versatility of the Sentinel robots. Unwilling to give up, Vincent shifted his idea to the Sentry droids. As he planned to steal the key to control the Sentinel, he discovered that the key had mysteriously disappeared. Later, Vincent discovered through a system query that the key was, in fact, consistently inserted in Sentry 22's body. Consequently, Vincent secretly trailed Dion to see what he was up to. Meanwhile, under Yolandi's guidance, Chappie had learned to mimic human speech and displayed powerful learning capabilities. When Dion arrived, he was pleased to witness Chappie's progress. However, Chappie's tone and actions resembled those of common gangsters, which immediately worried and angered Dion. He demanded that Chappie promise not to engage in any criminal activities in the future. After receiving a positive response from Chappie, Dion started training its thinking abilities and took Chappie outside to draw. However, everything that happened was being closely observed by Vincent. Chappie quickly drew the car in front of it, which made Dion happy. Ninja arrives at this point and immediately starts punching and kicking Dion. Ninja needs a killing machine, not a robot that draws pictures and tells stories. Ninja ousts Dion again. Ninja then turned his attention to Chappie, determined to use his own methods to train it. In order to expose Chappie to the cruel world, Ninja took him to a notorious hangout where thugs were active. As soon as the thugs saw the sudden appearance of the robotic sentry, they scattered in fear. However, once Ninja left the scene in his car, the thugs noticed that Chappie seemed different from the previous sentry robots. Their courage immediately grew, and they started attacking Chappie. Seeing Chappie offering no resistance, the remaining thugs became even more brazen. One thug knocked Chappie to the ground while another approached and threw Molotov cocktails at Chappie. This terrified Chappie, and it immediately fled the scene in a state of panic, desperately running away. Chappie quickly reached the outskirts of the city, feeling immensely scared by the events of the day. As Chappie sat resting on a rock, unaware of the imminent crisis, Vincent, upon learning about Dion's plan, swiftly located Chappie's position through the tracking system. This time, Vincent brought weapons specifically designed to counter the sentries. Under Vincent's attack, Chappie lost his mobility before he could react. By the time Chappie's program recovered, it was already in Vincent's vehicle. Now, Vincent aimed to retrieve the key from Chappie's body. Seeing Chappie attempting to resist, Vincent severed one of Chappie's arms. After successfully obtaining the key, Vincent prepared to completely destroy Chappie. However, in the face of imminent death, Chappie unexpectedly unleashed unprecedented power. Chappie overpowered the two men restraining it and opened the car door. jumping off the speeding vehicle. The henchman, now realizing the situation, immediately opened fire, but ordinary bullets couldn't penetrate Chappie's armor. As Chappie swiftly escaped, its figure soon disappeared into the darkness. Using the built-in tracking system, Chappie quickly returned to Ninja's base. Upon seeing Chappie's condition, Yolandi rushed to its side, angrily questioning Ninja. However, Ninja remained unaware of what Chappie had experienced. Observing Chappie's injuries, Yolandi immediately had America bring out the items Dion had left behind. After a simple replacement and installation, Chappie quickly regained a new arm. But after the events of the day, Chappie felt scared and insisted on staying with its mom. At that moment, Yolandi produced a storybook that Dion had brought for Chappie. Inside is the lesson Dean wants to impart to it. That night, Chappie seemed to suddenly understand many things. When the next day arrived, Ninja took the initiative to find Chappie and admitted his mistakes. He yearned for Chappie's forgiveness and made a decision he would be Chappie's father from now on. Ninja wanted to teach Chappie how to become brave and strong so that no one would bully it again. Chappie's learning abilities were incredibly powerful. However, when Ninja attempted to teach Chappie how to shoot, Chappie refused. Chappie had promised Dion that it would never engage in criminal activities. America, on the other hand, immediately stepped forward with an idea to make Chappie obedient. Faced with America's guidance, Chappie immediately learned what to do. Ninja then decided to teach Chappie how to use melee weapons. They began by teaching it how to throw darts, and once Chappie achieved a high level of accuracy, Ninja produced a pair of nunchucks he had acquired from somewhere. Seeing that Chappie already has a decent fighting ability, next Ninja began to transform Chappie's appearance, and so, a mechanical thug is born. Knowing that Chappie would never commit any criminal acts, Ninja plans to manipulate it into helping with a robbery under the pretext of completing a test. Ninja takes Chappie to the streets and points to a random car, claiming that the person stole his beloved car. Upon hearing this, Chappie's expression changes, and it grabs a wrench. Charging towards the person, Chappie went straight to the car and smashed it with a spanner. The driver didn't know what was going on. Chappie smashes the window, pulls the driver out and throws him into the bushes. The situation catches Ninja off guard, and he hastily instructs Chappie to return to the car. Chappie's actions cause too much commotion, and they need to leave immediately. Chappie smashed the car directly, realizing that even if they managed to steal the car, they wouldn't be able to sell it for a good price. After hearing his father's opinion, Chappie quickly finds a new target. This time, Chappie uses his authority as a robot cop to force a woman out of her car. Before the woman could react, Chappie drove off in her car. Using this method, Chappie successfully steals several luxury cars. Ninja then decided to sell all these cars to weapons dealers. This way they could exchange them for a large amount of equipment for their next heist. However, upon hearing this, Chappie regains his composure. When they get to the mob's territory, Ninja and the gang are in charge of the deal and Chappie stayed behind to keep watch for them. It is during this time that Chappie notices a dead stray dog. Chappie cautiously reaches out to touch it, witnessing death for the first time. Ninja witnesses this and explains that the real world is cruel. However, in response to Chappie's words, Ninja points his finger at Chappie's chest. Chappie's battery is nearly depleted, and due to its previous injuries, it cannot replace it like other robots. Ninja informs Chappie that once the battery in its chest runs out, it will die. Just like the stray dog, Chappie's only way to survive is to get a new body, but a new body needs to be bought with money. The only way to acquire enough money is through robbery, so Chappie reluctantly agrees to Ninja's plan. However, before their operation can begin, Dion arrives at Ninja's base with a gun. Dion is determined to get Chappie away at all costs, but Chappie wasn't as happy to see Dion as he was before. Confronted with Dion's persistent inquiries, Chappie finally voices its doubts. Chappie questions why Dean would give it a broken body if he chose to create it. After hearing Chappie's heartfelt words, Dion immediately explained that Chappie's appearance was beyond Dion's expectation. He didn't expect Chappie to evolve self-awareness like life. On the other side, Vincent, having obtained the key, embarks on a mad plan to gain government recognition for his research. He intends to implant a virus into all the Sentinels' systems. As the software update succeeds, the control programs of the Sentinels begin to malfunction. The virus spreads rapidly, affecting more and more machine police officers. One by one, they collapse to the ground, including Chappie. Fortunately, Dion is nearby and identifies the problem as a faulty central processor. The only way to save Chappie was to bring it back to the company and replace its program. Meanwhile, the news of all the machine police being paralyzed quickly reached Hippo's ears. Seeing this as an opportunity, he decides to create chaos. The order of the city soon began to crumble. Instigated by the gangs, countless mobs and thugs started pouring into the streets. Not only did they vandalize shops around the area, but they also vandalized cars parked on the side of the road. The frenzied mobsters began setting fires indiscriminately. Now, every corner of the city was filled with bloodshed and violence. Meanwhile, Vincent watched the news broadcast on television, and a look of excitement appeared on his face. Only if the city becomes more chaotic will the robots Vincent has developed be of use. This city has completely descended into chaos. Even with the efforts of the machine police to maintain order, the rapid spread of the virus has caused the remaining Sentinel robots to malfunction. The criminals have become even more brazen in their actions. They relentlessly attack the disabled Sentinels. All the robotic cops eventually go offline after Vincent's constant invasion. The thugs grabbed torches and burned all the sentries. Meanwhile, Dion has already returned to the laboratory with Chappie. Through computer data analysis, Dion quickly detects the malicious program within Chappie's system. Dion immediately restarts Chappie's control system. Chappie's consciousness swiftly awakens once again, and in that moment, Dion also regains his composure, realizing that he has been caught up in a massive conspiracy. Dion immediately wants to leave with Chappie, but at that moment, Chappie notices the giant robot in the laboratory. Dion explains that it is another robot called Moose, and the helmet next to it is a neural transmitter capable of reading human thoughts. As Moose lacks an intelligent program like the Sentinel, it requires human control. Upon hearing this news, Chappie immediately conceives a new idea. If it's not possible to replace the battery, why not just switch to a new body? Dion tells Chappie that it has developed self-awareness, unlike data that can be easily copied, so Chappie can't do consciousness transfer at all. However, the Chappie does not believe this and is convinced that it can find a way to transfer its consciousness. Ignoring Dion's objections, Chappie proceeds to take the neural transmitter. After returning to the ninja's hideout, Chappie immediately starts studying the neural transmitter. It connects its brain and the network, accessing all human knowledge, and begins to figure out a way to extract its consciousness. After an entire night of continuous research, Chappie finally succeeds in calculating its neural data. As Chappie observes the dynamic code on the computer screen, it realizes that it represents a replicated version of himself. Now, Chappie just needs to find a new body for the consciousness transfer. Ninja's robbery plan is set into motion. Everyone is fully armed, aiming to gather enough money. Their target this time is an armored cash-in transport vehicle. After forcibly stopping the vehicle, America uses a bomb to destroy the door. Chappie immediately takes action, throwing the security guards out of the vehicle with ease. With Chappie's assistance, the ninja team effortlessly completes the heist. The news of the robbery quickly spreads through television, shocking the entire city. No one can believe that the symbol of justice, the machine police, could commit crimes. Meanwhile, Dion, following the clues left on the computer, discovers that the virus responsible for disabling the Sentinels was implanted through Vincent's computer. As Dion sees the news of Chappie's involvement in the robbery, he is not in the mood to confront Vincent. Vincent found his boss and said that the sentry robot that carried out the robbery was designed by Dion. In order to restore city order and ensure the company's reputation after this incident, the only solution was to activate the Moose robot he had developed. After some consideration, the company boss agreed to Vincent's plan. Vincent immediately put on the control helmet and directed the Moose robot towards Ninja's camp. Meanwhile, at Ninja's camp, everyone was immersed in the joy of a successful robbery. Chappie excitedly asked Ninja when it could get a new body. However, Ninja told Chappie that there was no way for him to obtain a mechanical body. It was all a deception to make Chappie help them with the robbery. Seeing Chappie's increasingly unstable emotions, Yolandi immediately got out of the car to intervene. At that moment, Dion arrived at the scene and informed everyone that the Moose robot would soon arrive. Dion took out weapons he had brought from the company to help Chappie fight against Moose. However, Chappie chose to give up resistance.
I'm going anyways.
Just when everyone was feeling sad, two cars suddenly arrived at the scene. Ninja recognized them as Hippo's gang. This time, they came not only to take Ninja's money but also to kill everyone present. Unable to bear it any longer, Ninja took the initiative to launch an attack. The battle between the two sides was about to begin. Faced with Ninja's initial attack, the gangsters could only temporarily evade. Just as the gang members were preparing to launch a strong assault, a loud rumbling sound suddenly echoed from above. Soon after, a massive robot descended upon the scene. Under Vincent's control, the Moose robot had finally arrived at the battlefield. At this moment, America fired. but his bullets had no effect on Moose. The robot stomped on America's chest and then extended a mechanical scissor. With a scream, America was cut in half. The attack from Moose was not over yet. Vincent deployed a large-scale weapon that caused a powerful explosion. Ninja's base was completely obliterated. Seeing that everyone was defenseless against Moose's attacks, Vincent became more and more excited. He proceeded to launch a barrage of guided missiles, a weapon usually seen in war. After the explosion subsided, Vincent revealed a deranged smile. The Moose robot landed on the ground again, ready to kill everyone present. Just in the nick of time, Chappie came out, and by now Chappie was fully armed. It leaped towards Moose, but its attacks didn't inflict any damage. Despite the situation, Chappie didn't give up. After landing back on the ground, it immediately utilized the weapons brought by Dion. The powerful force directly knocked Moose backwards, and Chappie's attacks destroyed the weapon systems of the robot. Chappie had attached a bomb to a dagger in advance. Just as it was about to detonate the bomb, Moose struck Chappie, sending it flying and causing the detonator to be flung away. At this point, the gang members around resumed their attack. Their strong firepower diverted Moose's attention, and Ninja, in his haphazard assault, managed to hit Moose's monitor. Vincent lost sight of the battlefield. Vincent had to regain control of Moose and flew up into the sky. However, without the threat of Moose, Hippo initiated another attack on the group. He shot Ninja in the leg, and just as Dion attempted to escape, he was hit in the abdomen by a bullet. Ninja immediately retaliated, quickly overpowering Hippo, but Dion had fallen to the ground badly wounded by this time. Chappie decided to take Dion for medical treatment, but Vincent activated the backup infrared vision. Seeing Moose approaching again, Ninja made a decision. He told Chappie to take Yolandi and Dion and leave while he stayed behind to hold off the enemy. Yolandi, who had already left, rushed back and picked up the weapon Chappie had dropped, opening fire. Moose, in the distance, was hit by the attack. However, this also exposed Yolandi's position, and Moose immediately launched a counterattack. Yolandi was hit in the chest by bullet, falling in front of Chappie, witnessing his mother's collapse. Chappie was furious and had noticed the detonator on the floor. Vincent also noticed Chappie's intentions and immediately shot towards the detonator's location. However, Chappie braved the gunfire and managed to reach the detonator this time. Moose was finally blown to smithereens when Chappie flicked the switch. Chappie now needed to save Dion. With Dion, Chappie hurriedly returned to the company headquarters. However, upon opening the laboratory doors, Vincent, who was guarding the place, launched an attack. Chappie recognized him as the man who had cut off its arm earlier. Chappie charged towards Vincent in anger, and Vincent attempted to counterattack, but his attacks couldn't harm Chappie at all. Vincent quickly fell to the ground without any response under Chappie's furious assault. Chappie then immediately returned to Dion's side. Now Dion will soon be unable to hold on. Looking at the only remaining robot body here, Chappie directly put the neural transmitter on Dion. As Chappie initiated the program, Dion's consciousness began to transfer into the mechanical body. When Dion opened his eyes again, he couldn't believe that Chappie's research had indeed been successful. However, Chappie's power was also running out. Just as Chappie was preparing to say goodbye to Dion, Dion came up with another idea. Previously, Vincent implanted a virus program into the sentries here, and his computers still had the key to control them. Now they could remotely shut down one of the sentry robots and directly transfer Chappie's consciousness through the network. So Chappie immediately put on the consciousness helmet. As Dion pressed the confirmation button, the Chappie lying on the ground lost consciousness instantly. Shortly after, following the location system, Dion quickly arrived at the place where Chappie's body transfer was taking place. At this moment, a robot stood up slowly behind Dion, and it was the new Chappie after the body swap. Now Chappie finally gained a new life. They then returned to the ninja base. However, at this time, Mom had permanently lost her life. Yet the story did not end here. It turned out that on the night Chappie was researching consciousness transfer, it had already made a copy of Yolandi's consciousness in advance. Now, under Chappie's control, it would find a new body for Mom as well.
I'm a ninja!